Do more by doing less. With me, Charles Alexander, for small business owners, startups, and busy folks.
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Clark, that's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year.
So picture this. You've recently hired your brand new CEO. He is the turnaround specialist. He's going to save the company for a publicly traded organization that's fallen on tough times. We're excited. We got pen and paper. We're ready to roll. And for the next 12 minutes, he bores us to death and then he walks out of the room. This is not good. What is it? It's 1987. And Paul O'Neill, who was recently hired, Paul O'Neill, who was the Secretary of Commerce under one of the Georges, probably George W., was coming in to save the day. And it was for a company called Alcoa. Alcoa is an aluminum manufacturer right here in the great state of Tennessee. And things weren't going well. They had slipped in stock prices. The revenue had stagnated. They needed new ideas, a new infusion. They thought, well, here's this stud is going to come in and save the day. They bring in Paul O'Neill, and he makes this presentation that's confusing. He talks for 12 minutes about one thing only: safety. Which, great. Who's gonna be the jerk that argues against safety? I don't care about safety. Let them lose a pinky. We need to make more aluminum. Everybody's going to smile and I'm like, oh yeah, well, that's important. Well, you've got to take care of the employees. They'll take care of you, and every other cliche. But legit, after 12 minutes, he just shut her down and quit with what he's doing. Now, granted, they didn't have cell phones back then. Nobody could tweet or X or whatever you call it, an X tweet. They had to wait till the following day, write up their reports, hit the Wall Street Journal, and the stock price plummeted for Alcoa. So what happened along the way? Well, good old Paul knew one thing that they did not know: that safety was the top priority that would make everything else in that business work. And for the next decade, that's exactly what happened. In fact, the story goes that one of the very first incidences they had was a terrible one. A man died. And when Paul heard about it, he shut down the entire manufacturing facility, 1 million plus square foot. I think they even had other locations. He shut them all down, lost a bunch of time and production and money. When it got down to it, he figured out what happened. They talked about it. He personally made the phone call to the family to inform them what had happened and swore that nothing like this would ever happen again. And I think that was true. I don't think they did have any more deaths, which is an extreme scenario. But what safety did was, first and foremost, when they focused on it, they had a lot of lost production time because of safety issues. Well, that basically went away. His goal was to make sure that they had zero accidents at the course of an entire year, which is next to impossible. You could talk to anybody with OSHA, but that was the goal. And once he made that the focus, production went up, not just because of safety not being an issue with shutdowns, but primarily because if you're an employee of a place that's not generally safe and you know that safety is now a big deal, you feel valued, you're happy, you are productive. So productivity went up. What happens when productivity goes up? Culture goes up. Employee turnover, it goes down. Suggestions to the bosses. A lot of these guys are on the plant room floor. They have all these ideas. They can spot safety issues. They don't ever feel compelled to bring it up because nobody listens to them. They don't feel heard. They're not happy. Well, now they do that. They go talk to the boss. They tell them what happened. They have all of these recurring things that make that business hum. That one key point, that one priority was safety. So let's talk about you and me. Let's really talk about you. What is your top priority? What's the top thing that you do well in your business that makes everything else work, fall into place? Now, before you start giving me an answer, the temptation is to give something generic. And I've asked this in workshops. Well, Charles, somebody will say with a big Cheshire cat grin, really proud of themselves. Well, ours is customer service, or we just want to be the best at what we do. We want to offer world-class solutions. By the way, if you're saying tools and resources and solutions, that is not a specific priority. We take care of our people. And, I've had answers from this from folks that have been in their business for 2 decades or longer. and the revenue has been stagnated for the past 7 years. Apparently, it's not making everything else work. So don't give a generic answer like that. By the way, quick tangent, a generic answer like that is the like button on your text thread that you're in when somebody gives you important news like grandma is sick or we're having a new baby. Just don't hit the like button. That's the generic response they are not looking for. Reply with your words. Anyways, don't do that. Here's 4 questions that I have stolen that will help you uncover your top priorities. I think this comes from the book, The One Thing, written by Gary Keller. Great book. So 4 things. First, what are the things that other people say you do really well? Second, what are the work projects that you excel at and you enjoy doing? 3, what are you passionate about? And then 4, what do you love doing most in your business? The important thing that is, that you get so engrossed in that you lose track of time. Now, keep in mind, number 4, when I'm saying you lose track of time, that does not mean mindlessly scrolling through Facebook or something that doesn't bring you income, like data entry, where you plug in your favorite serial podcast, when you're not listening to this one. But the answers to those questions will help you uncover what your top priority is. And when I keep saying top priority, you can have top 2 or 3 priorities. The idea is that if you do these 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 4 things really well, everything else is forced to fall into place. And your priorities do not change on a week-to-week basis, folks. I had sent some type of content out about this before, and I had somebody immediately reached out to me, a good insurance buddy of mine. I said, well, Charles, what about my priorities for next week? What he meant is a to-do list. Priorities are the things that are locked in that we don't change. So for me, I really looked at it for my business coaching practice here. What are the things that if I do well, make everything else fall into place? And I could say, I give great coaching sessions and that makes my clients happy. And then they go tell everybody else. Or, I call and check on people regularly because that personal touch matters, and it might. But what I really figured out was that teaching in-person workshops or online webinars and showing what I know, being able to build a know, like, and trust factor mattered more than everything else. And when I did that, it made everything else fall into place. And that could very well be true for you as well, depending on the type of business that you have. The idea that, just forever, I would mindlessly go to the same networking events, or I would pump out the same social media content that I'd copied and pasted from someone else, or I would check every 15 things on a checklist so I could show somebody else. Say, look, see, I'm doing all the activities, so I must be doing something right. I'm busy. Busy does not equal productive. And in this case, I needed to focus on those priorities. And when I started doing that, things really changed for me. Looking at this, so I'm answering these questions for myself here, and you answer them for yourself. Number 1, what are the things that other people say I do really well? And this isn't bragging. I literally, a word that I overuse, literally went out and asked other people, what do you think I do well? And time and again, people say, Charles, you're a speaker. You don't know you're a speaker, but when you spoke at this event or, even something smaller like the chamber, we showed up, we didn't care what you're talking about. You're a speaker. Great. I like speaking. I get that'll work. So what are the projects that I really excelled at and that I enjoyed doing? Well, the things I really enjoyed at was getting face-to-face with people, talking to them, listening mostly. Listen, 80% of the time, only talk 20% of the time, and hearing what their issues are, writing them down, finding ways to help work through them. Number 3, what was I passionate about? Well, I was passionate about making sure that business owners, entrepreneurs, busy professionals understood all of their options for whatever stage they were in their business. And so many times those folks would get, generic resources. That's a one size fits all approach. And somebody that's getting ready to exit a business to retire is a light years different than someone who is, started 5 years ago or is just the beginning stage. And then lastly, number 4, what do I love doing most in my business? The most important thing that I get engrossed in that I lose track of time. It's teaching workshops. It's standing in front of a camera. It's helping other people and going through stories, analogies, examples, and then breaking them down and making them so simple that someone else could understand it, not outsourcing that part of my business. The other things is what you should be outsourcing. So for me, that was it. And if I do a really good job at teaching these workshops, and then I teach enough of them over and over and over, and I teach enough webinars over and over and over, man, it just kind of makes everything else fall into place because that A gives you a ton of content that you can use everywhere, and B, you're face to face with people. They will schedule time to follow up with you. They will come to your next event. They will tell somebody else. That's what really works for me. So for you, it might be different. If I teach these workshops really well, everything falls into place. But for you, it could be, a dozen other things. You can't just say, well, I give massive value. I'm really being authentic. Those are all good things, and they're also kind of BS. So case in point, I had a financial advisor friend of mine that wanted to do more by doing less. He wanted to figure out his priorities, and there's a million things you can do. He still manages the portfolios by himself. He doesn't outsource it, doesn't use any automated technology. And he could say that was it. Or he could say he writes the best article for the paper. Or he could say, I don't know, 24 other things about keeping up with trends and studying what the headlines. But for him, he discovered that a personalized outreach to existing clients and doing all of the work from just one office made the biggest impact. Let me break that down. His previous outreach, he had just used, the same standards thing all the other financial advisors were using, the same generic newsletter that they would pump out. Once he figured out that, that was a part of the puzzle he was trying to automate and save time with. But once he figured out that if he can make it personal and not just keep sending it to potential clients, just his existing clients, and tell them, he said, hey, I'm going on vacation. And he even put a picture of his family in there. P.S. Send me back a picture of your favorite family photo. He said he was inundated, had, a dozen within less than an hour before he could get out of the office. People loved that because it was a personal outreach. And he had 2 offices at the time. And it was important to have 2 offices because he wanted to have representation in this other city, but he shut it down. He shut the other one down. Hard to do, scary to do, but not just did it save him the travel time and the rent, but that made sure that he had all of that extra time to do more personal outreach because that's what mattered to him. It wasn't just a generic, I do great customer service, I offer a ton of value. He was doing the things that his clients really needed him to do. As a result, his client turnover is down a little bit. When he schedules their in-person reviews, they are way more likely to show up. And then when they do show up, they give him referrals. All right, so back to you. Find your priorities, and then you'll find the rest of your way. Find your priorities, and you'll do more by doing less. As for Alcoa, you fast forward from 1987 to, I think it was year 2000, they grew from a $3 billion company to a $27 billion company, all because of safety. Not too bad for one boring speech. Don't take off just yet. I've created a new program just for you, helping overworked entrepreneurs create their very own 4-day work week in 90 days or less. Look, if you'd rather spend more time with family, friends, traveling, exercising, having the time to do what you want instead of, putting out never-ending fires, tackling another to-do list, and checking email at 9 p.m., then go to my website, yourcharlesalexander.com. If you've created the income you want but don't have the time freedom you deserve, then this is for you. And as always, if you don't, an angel may actually lose its wings. True story. Have a great day.